Hello and welcome into this week's edition of The Pole Position right here on Racing News Now. As always, I'm your host, Garth Allen. Thank you once again for joining me today. If this is your first time catching a Racing News Now video, consider going down below to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing going forward from RNN. On today's pole position, we have a lot to cover today. Only the NASCAR Truck Series and the K&N Pro Series not in action this weekend. Everything else we cover was in action this weekend. We've got NASCAR Xfinity, Cup, ARCA, IndyCar, F1, Formula E, IMSA, NHRA, and World of Outlaws all to talk about today on pole position. So let's just dive right into it. We'll start as we usually do with the NASCAR stuff. We have rewind shows for the Cup race and the ARCA race this weekend. Because we were in Salem with ARCA, we didn't get a chance to do an Xfinity rewind this weekend, but the other two will be down in the description. So we'll start off with the Xfinity Series. It was Friday night, the Toyota Care 250, 250 laps, 187.5 miles. Around the three-quarter mile Richmond Raceway in Richmond, Virginia. Cole Custer picks up win number 2 for 2019. A dominating run out of Cole Custer, leading 122 laps on the night en route to the victory. Austin Cindric came very close to that first career victory in Xfinity. He came home in the second position after leading 7 laps. Justin Allgaier led 86 laps on the night en route to a third-place finish. Tyler Reddick in fourth, and a very strong top 5 run out of Ryan Sieg in fifth. That team just continues to click off good finishes week in and week out. Other notables finishing well on the night, Zane Smith with an excellent run in sixth. Another good run for him in that 8 car. Riley Herbst in the 18 car this week for Joe Gibbs Racing picked up a top 10 finish in the 9th position. And Elliott Sadler makes his return to the Xfinity Series after retiring last season. Picked up a couple races this season with Colleague Racing in the 10 car. He came home in the 12th position. Kaz Gralla back in the 21 car this week for Childress. He came home in the 14th position. Christopher Bell led 32 laps, but unfortunately was only able to salvage a 16th place finish on the night. Noah Gragson, first car 1 lap down in 22nd. Alright, so let's move on to the other race from Richmond on the weekend, and it was the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. Saturday night's Toyota Owners 400. 400 laps, 300 miles around the three-quarter mile Richmond Raceway in Richmond, Virginia. Martin Truex Jr. finally got the monkey off of his back and picked up a short track win in the 19 car and his first for Joe Gibbs Racing after leading 186 laps on the night. That was the most of any driver in this race. Joey Logano gave him a really tough run there at the end of the race. If he'd had another couple of laps, I think Logano probably would have won this one. But that's not how this played out. It's not the Toyota Owners 402, it's the Toyota Owners 400. Clint Boyer came home in third. He had a strong run on the night as well. Kevin Harvick in fourth, and Denny Hamlin rounded out the top 5. Rest of your top 10 were Austin Dillon, Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch, Ryan Newman, and Paul Menard with a top 10 run this week in 10th. Alright, now let's move on to the ARCA Menard Series. They were in action Sunday afternoon for a rain-shortened Kentuckiana Ford Dealers 200. It was scheduled to be 200 laps. We went 101 laps, just far enough to be able to call the race official when the rain hit around the half-mile Salem Speedway in Salem, Indiana. Michael Self absolutely dominated this race, led 72 of the 101 laps that we ran. After taking the lead from Carson Hocevar on lap 27, he was gone. There was nobody going to touch Michael Self in this race. He had a bad, fast Sinclair Venturini Motorsports Toyota underneath him. Sam Mayer came home in the second position. Carson Hocevar from the pole finished in the third position. Chandler Smith in fourth, and Corey Heim rounded out the top 5. Rest of your top 10, Ty Gibbs, Tanner Gray, Harrison Burton subbing for the ill Christian Eckes in 8th, Joe Graff Jr. in 9th, and Brett Holmes rounded out the top 10. Alright, so that does it for the stock car stuff on the weekend. Let's move on to the road racing for the weekend, and we'll start with IndyCar, and that was the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach. 85 laps, 167.3 miles, around the 1.968 mile Long Beach street course in Long Beach, California. Alexander Rossi, a dominating run out of him, led all but 5 laps in this race, 80 laps total on his way to what I think everybody knew was a Rossi victory on like lap 2. He was just in his own zip code in this race. He and Michael Self had very similar races this weekend. Once they took the lead, there was no stopping them. Joseph Newgarden, your points leader, came home in the 2nd position, leading 2 laps on the day. Scott Dixon in 3rd, Graham Rahal 4th. Ryan Hunter-Ray rounded out the top 5. Rest of your top 10, Simon Pagenaud, Will Power, Takuma Sato, James Hinchcliffe, and Felix Rosenquist, picking up another top 10 for his rookie campaign. All right, now moving on to the other race from Long Beach this weekend, and that was IMSA, the WeatherTech Sports Car Challenge on the Bubba Burger Grand Prix at Long Beach. 73 laps, 143.7 miles around the 1.968 Long Beach Street Course. I almost said Laguna Beach. Long Beach, California. Only DPI and GTLM classes in this race. Your DPI and overall winner from the race was the Mustang Sampling Racing Cadillac DPI, driven by Yao Barbosa and Felipe Albuquerque. And your GTLM winner, finishing 8th overall in this race, was the Porsche GT team in their Porsche 911 RSR, driven by Earl Bomber and Lawrence Vanthor. Now, on to the Formula racing from the weekend. Formula 1 was in action this weekend for the Heineken Chinese Grand Prix. 56 laps, 305.3 kilometers around the 5.451 kilometer Shanghai International Circuit, Shanghai, China. Lewis Hamilton picks up win number 2 for the season. He has now won 2 of the 3 races this season and 2 in a row after leading all 56 laps in this race. Teammate Valtteri Bottas came home in 2nd, and just like last week, there was a Ferrari rounding out the podium. Last week it was Leclerc. This week it is Vettel in 3rd to round out the podium. Rest of your top 5 also looks similar to the last Formula 1 race, I guess not last week. Verstappen came home in 4th, and Leclerc puts a Ferrari also in the top 5. And then Pierre Gasly, last car on the lead lap, in 6th in the other Red Bull. Rest of your top 10 receiving points: Daniel Ricciardo in a Renault, Sergio Perez in the Sport Peso Racing Point car, Kimi Räikkönen in an Alfa Romeo, and Alexander Albon in the Toro Rosso rounded out the top 10. Formula E also in action this weekend for the Rome E-Prix. Mitch Evans picking up the win in that one for the Panasonic Jaguar Racing Team. Andre Lottier and Stoffel Van Dorn rounding out the podium for this one. You can look through the rest of the top 10 if you would like for this one, if you're curious where some of your favorites finished in the Rome E-Prix. Alright, so that does it for the open wheel racing for the weekend and the road racing. Now we'll move on to the straight line stuff. NHRA was also in action this weekend for the Mopar Express Lane NHRA Spring Nationals, presented by Pennzoil from the Houston Raceway Park in Baytown, Texas. Brittany Force picks up the win in Top Fuel, and Robert Height is your winner in the funny car class. Pete Peary was your Super Stock winner. Mountain Motor Pro Stock also a class this week. First time we've seen that class this season. John DeFlorian picked up the win in the Mountain Motor Pro Stock. Final race of the weekend. There were supposed to be 2 races for the World of Outlaws this weekend from Devil's Bowl Speedway, Mesquite, Texas, for the Texas Outlaw Nationals. Saturday night's race unfortunately got rained out and canceled, but they were in action Friday night from Devil's Bowl. Logan Schuchert claimed his 2nd victory of the year in the first 12 races of the season. He had to contest his Shark Racing teammate, though, Jacob Allen, who led for 10 laps before Schuchert and Darren Pittman got by him. Schuchert did sail off to victory once past Allen, though. Pittman charged by him with about 10 laps to go, but Schuchert took advantage of a mistake by Pittman the next lap and went on to win his 10th career World of Outlaws victory. And that'll do it. That is all we have for you this weekend from all the forms of motorsports, all major forms of motorsports that we cover, both not just in North America, but around the world. F1 was in China this weekend, Formula E in Rome. So We cover just about everything here. If there's a form of motorsports that we don't cover here on Pole Position that you want to see covered, let us know, and we will start covering it here on Pole Position. We try to cover all the bases that we can here, but I know there are folks that enjoy other things that we may not cover on here. So this is kind of the catch-all for everything. Whatever you want to know about from the past weekend, we will catch you up on it here on Pole Position. So if there's anything we're not talking about on Pole Position, let us know, and we'll start getting it here on Pole Position in the future. But big weekend this weekend, as we said. Rewind shows from both the Cup race in Richmond and ARCA from Salem. We do have a winner interview from Michael Self for the ARCA Rewind, so go check that out if you haven't. Again, they are linked down below in the description. Michael, always a pleasure to talk to. I love talking to Michael. Great guy, and always a fun interview. So go check that out if you haven't already. Next weekend, I don't think there's anything in action because it's Easter weekend. For as far as I can tell, I don't think there's any racing next weekend. So if that is the case, there will not be a Pole Position next Monday, because what are we going to cover if nothing happens? So if that's the case and there isn't anything happening next weekend, no Pole Position next week. If I'm wrong and there is something from one of these series that we cover, we will have a Pole Position next week to talk about that race, but I don't think there is. So plan on no Pole Position next week, and really probably plan on nothing really going up at all next weekend, because there won't be any rewind shows. I know there's no NASCAR, there's no ARCA, there's no K&N, nothing like that, so we won't have any rewind shows. But we do have some cool stuff coming up. Should be leading into the next weekend, Talladega weekend. Some cool ARCA special features for you coming up. We're shooting to try and have those ready to get you led into Talladega. That is the plan right now. We're still in the editing phases, so we'll see how that works out. We've already got it all filmed. We're just working on the editing side of things. So that's the tentative plan, is to have some cool stuff going up for you the week leading into Talladega. And then, of course, we will be in Talladega with ARCA, not this coming Friday, but the Friday after that. So while there isn't really anything coming up this week, more or less, other than Diecast Review on Wednesday, the next week will be another cool week for you with us live at the track from Talladega. But if you haven't done it already, you need to go down below, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing going forward from RNN. While you're down there, why don't you hit that big thumbs up button if you like the video. It's much appreciated when you do. But at that, this has been the Pole Position, where you always start on the front row. I'm Garth Allen for Racing News Now.